Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City, where all my favorite sports teams reside, if you couldn't already tell. 5,280 feet above sea level. In this installment of Game Time Sloth, I'll be counting down the top 10 sports moments and achievements for Denver based teams. Please note that plays like the drive from the '86 championship game or the helicopter play from Super Bowl 32 would not be featured on this list, as they are not an event on their own, but they are individual efforts or plays in singular games. So if you're looking for those plays, you'll have to wait a bit more, as they will be featured in another video. Kicking off our list is Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. When Jokic won his first MVP 2 years ago, he was officially declared as the greatest Nugget to ever live. But winning an MVP isn't that much a big of an event to be featured on this list. But when you think about it in the sense of Jokic did what no other Nugget before him did, and there were a lot of stars on those Nuggets teams like Alex English or Carmelo Anthony. It took the Nuggets organization 53 years to produce an MVP in comparison to other teams in Denver. The Broncos had John Elway, Terrell Davis, Peyton Manning, and the Colorado Avalanche had Joe Sakic and Patrick Waugh. So Jokic barely makes the list, but with the way that this Denver team is built, he could probably take them to the finals, and we could have our first finals appearance and maybe even win a championship with his tenure in Denver. So this list might be updated soon. At number 9, we have the Colorado Avalanche winning their second championship in 2001. Down 3-2 to the New Jersey Devils. The dream of 22-year-old veteran Ray Bourque to hold the Stanley Cup was slowly fading away. That was until the Colorado Avalanche swept the last 2 games and won the Stanley Cup. It's just the image of Joe Sakic presenting the Stanley Cup to Ray Bourque at the ceremony. It just says it all. Ray Bourque has done it. Back to the Denver Nuggets, and at number 8. Beating the Seattle Supersonics in the 1994 NBA playoffs. The Nuggets were already down 2-0 against Seattle in an era where the first round of the playoffs was decided in 5-game series. The Nuggets picked themselves up and went on to win the remaining 3 games of that series. Mutombo had an amazing individual effort of 15 rebounds and 8 blocks in the deciding Game 5, and the image of him just falling down while clinching the basketball and smiling at the sound of the buzzer says it all. Small market teams are here to compete in the NBA, and they are not afraid of any of the star-studded teams out there. Small victory, huge results going forward for the Nuggets. At number 7, Denver finally gets its first major sports team. In 1960, Bob Howsam founded the Broncos and brought them to Denver. He thought it would be a good sporting city. And he was not wrong. People went head overboard crazy for the Broncos. The Broncos beat the Boston Patriots in their first match, 13-10. Even though the first decade for the Broncos was a bit tough, they didn't achieve much. Back in 1967, the Broncos had some stadium issues. It wasn't up to code with the league's attendance records. So there were some speculations that the team would be sold and would be moving to Chicago. But we, the fans, said no. And through private contributions, we helped the ownership group add 10,000 seats to the already existing Broncos Stadium to have at least 50,000 seats up to league standards. And the rest is history. At number 6, it's Tebow Mania. We haven't had this much magic in the air in Denver since John Elway retired after the 1998 Super Bowl. Tim Tebow led us to 6 late game and overtime victories in the 2011 season and had us all believing in the Broncos again. That overtime win against the Steelers in the playoffs, simply a work of art. One play to Demaryius Thomas, may his soul rest in peace, is all it took for Invesco Field to explode. There is just this something about Denver teams and coming back from behind to win. And this is exactly what our number 5 spot is about. Back when COVID hit, the NBA playoffs were played in the Disney bubble in Orlando. And the Nuggets exceeded expectations, especially Jamal Murray. The Nuggets were down 3-1 against the Utah Jazz in the first round, and they went on to beat them with a score of 3-4 for the Nuggets. This was not the only comeback that happened that year in the playoffs for the Nuggets. They were also down 3-1 against the star-studded, heavily favored to win the championship Los Angeles Clippers. What did the Nuggets do? They also came back from a 3-1 deficit in the series to beat the Clippers. The first team to win 2 series in an NBA playoffs while being down 3-1. The efforts that Nuggets team put in the bubble is an effort for the ages.
I mean, there's always next year. It's all we talk about. I feel like, I'm going in my 9th year next year and I haven't won shit. So I'm just.
Say it ain't so. After 21 long years, Lord Stanley comes back home to Denver. The only thing missing from that parade, in my opinion, was a guest appearance by Blink-182. So, in dominating fashion, sweeping the Predators and the Oilers to our way to the Stanley Cup Finals, we beat the back-to-back champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning, in their own house to win the Stanley Cup and bring it back home.
What's up, guys? I don't have much to say. I don't have a ton to say. It's been a long road coming to this point. My 9th year, I finally won something, I guess, but...
All Colts grew up to be Broncos. Back in '83, the Baltimore Colts picked John Elway with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. But he didn't want anything to do with that organization, so he threatened them, either trade me or I will not sign with you and go play baseball with the Yankees. Someone really wanted Elway. We traded for Elway and the rest was history. 17 seasons, produced 5 Super Bowl appearances and a league MVP award. Elway won 2 of those, and what's more specific about those 2, Elway ended his career after winning those 2 Super Bowls back-to-back. There is no better ending or a walk-off in NFL history than Elway's back-to-back Super Bowl victories and retiring. Like Elway before him, Peyton Manning was drafted by the Colts in 1998. After he spent 13 seasons with the Colts, he was shown the back door. And he signed with Denver. 4 years with the Broncos produced 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl victory. And exactly like Elway before him, Peyton Manning retired on a high note after winning a Super Bowl. The legends of Denver. 1996 was known for 2 things. The beginning of one of the most, if not the most, exciting rivalry in hockey, the Colorado Avalanche and the Detroit Red Wings. And also it's known for the Colorado Avalanche bringing home the first championship for the city of Denver in their inaugural season. Joe Sakic led the way with 34 points and being named MVP of those playoffs. It wouldn't hurt to mention that the Avs won the Stanley Cup convincingly in the finals, sweeping the Florida Panthers 4-0 in their path to win their first Stanley Cup and the first championship for the city of Denver. Honorable mentions. Both of our honorable mentions go to the Denver Broncos. The first one dates back to 1968, as when the Broncos broke the race barrier and named Marlon Briscoe as their starting quarterback. Briscoe was the first African American starting quarterback in the AFL. On the other hand, the second honorable mention is, after 17 years of existence, the Broncos finally made good on their promise for their fans and they reached the Super Bowl. We lost to the Cowboys 27-10, but at least we made it, and it paved the way for the future of the Broncos organization. At this point, you may be asking yourself, didn't the Broncos win 3 Super Bowls? But how come none of them were mentioned in this video yet? Well, I cheated and placed all 3 Super Bowls at number 1. Because the story of winning those Super Bowls are somehow connected. When we won our first Super Bowl back in 1997, and owner Pat Bowlen finally got to hold the Lombardi Trophy, he did not brag about it to his billionaire friends. The first thing he did was he said, "I only have 4 words. This one's for John." And that's reference to John Elway, who stayed with the Broncos for 16 seasons at that time. And the year after that, when we won back-to-back Super Bowls, same thing happened. Mr. B did not brag about it. He held the Lombardi Trophy, pointed out to the fans, and says, "This one's for you." Moving on to the 2015 season, when the Broncos finally won their 3rd Super Bowl, John Elway went up to the podium, held the Lombardi Trophy, and dedicated the win to Mr. B.
There's one thing I want to say here tonight. It's only 4 words. This one's for John. 4 words. This one's for you.
I know you've had it in your hands before, but this one, for constructing this team, what does this one mean to you?
Well, and I'm going to say this, and you would not want me to say this, but this one's for Pat!
Help me beat out the YouTube algorithm by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more Denver sports related content. What's your favorite Denver sports moment? Leave that down in the comment below.